Welcome back to CIPD Level 5 Made Familiar, where we break down CIPD Level 5 concepts into clear, practical insights. In this video, we're focusing on 5CO02 AC1.1, exploring the concept of evidence-based practice in people management. We'll evaluate its strengths and limitations and look at how Technivara, the case study organization, can apply it to make sound, informed decisions. Let's get straight into it. By the end of this lesson, you will be able to demonstrate an understanding of the requirements of the question, demonstrate an understanding of how to address the assessment criterion using the command verb evaluate, and develop well-structured responses that align with the assessment criteria and grading standards. With that said, let's dive into today's lesson. First, let's take a moment to unpack what this question is really asking you to do. The requirements for this assessment criterion are split into two parts. First, you need to evaluate the concept of evidence-based practice, and second, you need to provide two examples of how it can be applied within Technivara. In the first part of the question, it is important to note that you are not just required to define evidence-based practice. You must go beyond explaining what EBP is, and instead assess its value, strengths, and limitations. In simple terms, the question is asking, what is evidence-based practice? Why is it useful? What are its weaknesses? And how can it be applied in real organizational decisions? Moving forward, the second part of the question is equally important. You must apply EBP to Technivara's context, meaning your examples must be realistic and relevant to the organization. At Technivara, decisions are currently influenced by traditional, paper-based systems and limited use of workforce data. This creates a clear opportunity for EBP to improve decision-making by introducing more structured, data-driven approaches. Your role, therefore, is to demonstrate how using evidence rather than opinion can lead to more effective and reliable people management decisions at Technivara. Now that we understand the question, the next critical step is interpreting the command verb. Understanding the command verb is essential because it helps to determine the depth, structure, and focus of your answer. Misinterpreting the verb can lead to losing marks, even if your content is accurate. So, the command verb in this AC asks us to evaluate. To evaluate means to make a judgment about the value, quality, or importance of something using evidence, knowledge, and reasoning. In simple terms, an evaluation requires you to consider strengths and weaknesses, assess validity, reliability, and usefulness. Then wrap up with a balanced conclusion. Therefore, you are not just describing evidence-based practice. Instead, you are judging how effective it is in supporting decision-making in people practice, basing your arguments on theory and evidence. But a learner might still be wondering at this point, isn't an evaluation the same as analysis? The answer is no. While they are closely related, analyzing and evaluating are not the same. Both analysis and evaluation involve breaking information down, but the focus is different. Analysis focuses on breaking a concept into parts and exploring how those parts relate to each other. It answers, what is happening and why is it happening? Evaluation goes a step further by assessing value and effectiveness. It compares strengths and weaknesses to judge on effectiveness and usefulness. Take a look at the following examples of an analytical versus an evaluative response. The example explains what EBP is in Technivara and uses cause and effect to show relationship. For instance, data use leads to more consistency. However, it offers no judgment on value. Now, let us turn our attention to this other example. In the evaluative response, there is a clear demonstration of benefits, limitations, and overall judgment, which brings out a clear picture of how effective EBP is and whether or not it can be applied at Technivara. Take note that for CIPD assignments, stronger answers will often move from analysis into evaluation, as this demonstrates deeper critical thinking. However, success depends on aligning with the command verb in question. But the risk lies in misalignment. If the question asks you to evaluate and you only analyze, you won't reach the required depth and thus fail. However, if you are asked to analyze and you evaluate instead, you may go beyond what is required and likely land a pass. Now that we understand the question and the command verb, let us proceed to explore how to answer this assessment criteria effectively. To do this well, you need to recognize that this question has two main parts, and your answer must address both. One, defining the concept of evidence-based practice, considering its benefits and drawbacks. And two, providing two examples of where Technivara could use EBP to ensure sound decision-making in people practice. Let's break this down step by step. Step 1. Definition of evidence-based practice. Start your answer with a clear and concise definition of EBP. Ensure to keep your answer brief so as to not waste too much of your word count at this point. Remember, you gain points from your evaluation and not definition. It is also important to back your definition with evidence. Therefore, ensure to cite the source where you acquire your definitions from. Step 2. Evaluate strengths and limitations. At this step, you are expected to demonstrate higher-level thinking, as this is where you clearly show that you understood the command verb. Therefore, as you are expected to evaluate EBP, you must provide a balanced argument of both the strengths and weaknesses of EBP. Providing a one-sided argument of either strengths or limitations will lead to an automatic fail. But how do you present this argument? While many learners opt to simply state the strengths and limitations, you must remember that as a CIPD Level 5 learner, stating points will not score you high points. You might not necessarily fail, but this does not demonstrate higher-level thinking. Therefore, to do this properly, keep in mind that less is more. Pick out two strengths and two limitations that you may provide an in-depth evaluation and link these arguments directly to Technivara. Step 3. Applying EBP to Technivara. Now, moving on the second part of your answer, it is now time to demonstrate the applicability of evidence-based practice to people practices at Technivara by providing two clear and relevant examples. Note that your examples must go beyond simply stating areas of people practice. Naming an area like recruitment or employee development is only your starting point. Your assessor wants to see how EBP shapes the decision, not just where it could be applied. Let's revisit the evaluative response we saw earlier. As illustrated, without simply stating the opposing sides, this learner has demonstrated a well-balanced evaluation and ensured to link it back to the case organization, Technivara. The evaluation has all necessary components including benefits, limitations, and an overall judgment. Always remember that high-quality responses include clear judgment, not just lists of points. To earn an extra point, appropriately apply models of EBP that may be useful in shaping these decisions, like exploring individual versus group decision-making in rewards, or rational versus bounded rationality in performance management, and how these can help Technivara make better decisions that align with its future direction. Let your applications bring clarity. You may add examples from other organizations to support your arguments. Do it skillfully to avoid stretching your word count too far. Step 4. Structuring your answer. A clear structure is essential for achieving higher marks. With a question that has numerous requirements, a clear structure is well supported with subtopics. Clear subtopics give your answers a flow and make it easy to follow. Also ensure to support your arguments with evidence and cite these evidences accurately. Do not forget to always maintain focus on Technivara's context and the need to move from traditional practices to evidence-based decision-making. Always remember, passing this assessment criterion is as easy as ABC. A. Apply the command verb evaluate. Always have it at the back of your mind that when asked to evaluate, you are expected to provide a balanced argument of both the limitations and strengths, supporting your points with reasoning and providing a clear overall judgment. Ensure that your evaluation demonstrates both value and effectiveness. B. Balance your word count. Set a clear word count to each AC before you begin writing, and ensure you stay within those limits when writing. Always remember to prioritize depth over breadth. This will help you manage the overall assignment word count effectively. See, cite, and reference. Always support your arguments with evidence from reputable external sources. Ensure you cite and reference at least 2 credible sources. Be mindful of your in-text citations and ensure to apply the year of publication. If you want to see a full example of a top-scoring answer, check out the link in the description below. If this video helped you understand AC 1.3 more clearly, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share with other CIPD learners who may be struggling. Thanks for learning with me and see you in the next one.